What's up, everyone? We're back, review time again, and this is a real milestone, Zach. We're reviewing a movie we both thought was good.
For new reviews, we reviewed a lot of movies that we both like in our regular pods.
True, but it's been a sort of a running joke for a while that every time we do like a standalone new movie review, for some reason, either both of us hate it or one of us hates it. And this is the first movie that we both watched, and we're like, yeah, that's pretty good.
I think it's a sign of the times of, movies getting back in action and new releases not being ones kind of dumped earlier. Because all the mainstream big ones were bound to not be great because this was, held for a reason. This was held until, it can make $50 million in the box office because they had, belief in it for the right reason.
Right. This is like The Woman in the Window was held by Netflix because they wanted to figure out when they could dump it because they knew it was going to do badly. This movie was held because Paramount was like, we would like to make some money off this. We think we can make, $150, $200 million. And they seem to be well on their way to achieving it.
Great decision.
I think a very good decision. It's a really good movie to go back to. Let's do some quick non-spoiler thoughts for our audience who may have not seen the film yet or trying to decide. I will go first and just say it's not as good as the first one, but it's still a very, very good sequel. If you liked the first one, this feels like a really easy transition to this film. It does not feel like you don't have like a problem jumping from movie to movie. It does all the stuff it does well in the first one. Krasinski's directing style is just very, very steady and consistent. He doesn't do a lot of changing stuff, so you don't ever feel like you're like watching two vastly different movies. Good introduction of a new character to kind of fill the role that we had to fill when Krasinski's not in this film. But I think overall just a really, really, really solid, good sequel to a movie that was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to like the first one and not like this. This is a hard movie for me to imagine people, having strongly negative beliefs about in general. I don't really know where it's coming from. I would say the other one, had a little more like tragedy and the drama was a little more heightened. This one, to me, felt a lot like Jurassic Park in a way, as far as like tonally, the sense of like adventure and the use of tension. And how long the tension was dragged out for. Like it was really just like fast moving. Like the action was pretty consistent for about an hour through it, and I think that's more it's less like a horror movie. This is what I'm using to convince my wife to watch. It's like it's not really scary. It's like Jurassic Park, but I think this one relies thematically more on like individual growth and resilience rather than the kind of tragedy of the situation overall.
Yeah, it's more focused about the characters and seeing where they've gone and less focused on... I think Krasinski makes a really smart choice to realize that after the first movie, we kind of already have the gimmick of you get silent because the movie is telling you that noise is dangerous is something that they continue in the second movie because you obviously, for continuity's sake, have to continue, but they also don't play with it as much because they realized that they played with it so much in the first movie and they needed to do something different. So I think that was a really smart choice on their part.
Yeah, this is just kind of becomes like natural to what's happening with it. Like the times they be silent doesn't stick out to you as much to when, in the movie when they're like talking behind a waterfall, it all kind of connects. Like you can see the movie like planning it out to make that gimmick function. And this is just like seems inherent to the environment.
Yeah. So let's do the transition over to the spoiler section. Anyone who has not seen the film or does not want spoilers for any reason is trying to decide. We would both recommend you go see this. Go see this in the theater. This is a really fun theater experience. As the theaters near you are open, and
really wonderful. I have seen other movies in theaters before this, but none have had the experience of this. This is really great.
This is a real big screen. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Also, really impressed with Cinemark's COVID-19 preparations. They do a lot of like really good stuff. They had like even a little presentation at the beginning talking about all their air filters and like the way that they're cleaning stuff down, and the fact that if you buy a ticket in a seat, they block out seats around you so that they are specifically building in the social distancing you'd want in the theater. It's really nice.
Yeah. I secretly have been fairly COVID safe in my movie theater procedures for years before COVID because I sit in the third row. No one else sits up in their front section. I got like 5 rows all to myself.
I got stuck in the front row. It was an interesting experience. This is what happens when you show up like late and you have to kind of grab whatever tickets you want. Let's jump over to the spoiler section. So the basic plot of this movie is at the end of the first one, they've kind of figured out the weakness of the aliens. They've killed one of them, but Krasinski has also perished. This movie starts with a flashback to day 0 of the alien outbreak, and you get to see kind of what normal life was before. And this is when you get the initial introduction of Cillian Murphy's character. He's just kind of a sort of another dad in the area. I think his kid also plays on the softball team, on the baseball team with John Krasinski's kid. Then you get to see it was kind of cool to go back to the first moment they attacked. And then can you jump forward to the normal day? You've got the family still trying to kind of escape, trying to be safe. They end up running. They end up realizing that there's another place that they could potentially go to. That's where Cillian Murphy is. They kind of have to hide from the aliens there. The daughter tries to go off and find like safety. Emily Blunt begs Cillian Murphy to go with her. They end up going and finding they figured out that the creatures have a problem with water and they can travel to like an island, I think in Long Island or something, that's where they can be safe.
Yeah, or like Martha Vineyard.
Something like that. It doesn't really matter what that is, but that's kind of the general plot of this, is just kind of them trying to find the next safety step. There is supposedly a third film coming in this franchise. I don't know if it's going to follow the same family or just be
directed by Jeff Nichols.
Wow,
Tom. We're doing Jeff Nichols month when Quiet Place 3 comes. We've already.
I'm done with this. I'm
teased it.
I'm totally okay with that. Let's talk about let's talk about the new character. Let's talk about Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
What did you think of him in the movie?
I think the introduction was a little weird. I feel like they didn't do enough with establishing the connection between him and John Krasinski and his personality. But once he's like part of the plot, you kind of just forgive it for the lack of kind of establishment. Because I think he was still good. You kind of describe him as a surrogate John Krasinski, but he's still different enough because he's closer. He's more like parallel to Noah Jupe's character as someone who's really struggling in the situation and struggling with the loss that he had with his family. So he's kind of became immobilized in a way, like has a lack of action to his character, and to where this family kind of motivates him to take action within the situation a little more. So he more or less is, well, him and the kids all have their own little character arcs. But I think this, for the adult viewers, is in a way our like Avatar, for us to see how we can find our strength within the a apocalyptic environment.
He is also kind of an interesting counterpart to the Krasinski character from the first film, where Krasinski is very much a survivalist, but he's a survivalist to protect his family. Murphy is more and somewhat a nihilist. He's kind of lost everything. There's a level of like suffering, and he hasn't necessarily given up, but he's certainly not somebody who thinks that there's a lot of really great options or safety out there. He kind of just thinks that everyone is screwed, and eventually he's going to die like everybody else does. Like that's kind of his general makeup.
Sounds like giving up.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't like let himself die. He's still fighting to survive, but he's not somebody.
He lost his like faith in humanity ever being able to return to the roots of what it was.
I do think if there's not a lot to talk about in this film because it does a lot of the same things from the first one, so you could just talk about the first one. I do think the couple things I wanted to touch on were some of the stuff with Cillian Murphy. They don't necessarily. There are threads they throw out there that they don't necessarily do much with. There's a moment where Noah Jupe goes snooping in his place and finds the mummified corpse of his wife upstairs, which I can't tell it was them trying to signal something sinister or like disturbing, or just his wife died there. It's a moment that I feel like it comes off as really shocking in the narrative, but they never spend any time. Like,
I don't think it was supposed to be a narrative point. I think it was just there more as the kind of a jump scare moment, a little frightening, because I think you could just assume that she died there, and there's monsters about, so you can't do too much maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just a moment that I'm like, I remember walking out of the theater and I was like, that was the one moment that stuck out to me as the moment that they never truly explained what was going on. Sort of the same thing happens when they go down to the river and they're trying to take a boat, and then they get attacked by these random people who seemingly Cillian Murphy knows who they are or what they are in some kind of context, but it's never really given much information to us. There's definitely a lot of, I mean, I guess in some ways I can't criticize the movie because I appreciate the fact that it doesn't feel the need to always give us a glossary of every single individual in the world. There's kind of just like, you're given a lot of like moment cues, like, oh, these people are bad. You don't necessarily need their, 15-minute backstory, and I do appreciate it. But there are definitely moments you're left out and they're like, okay, I don't know why you brought them to the story, but okay, you brought them to the story.
This tends to be the negative criticism given to this movie, is that specific scene, and it does have some connective tissue to his comments earlier when he said, like, you don't want to see what people have become. So he hints at this, and I think that leads the viewer to think it's going to be something a little more elaborate upon. But for me, I said, because I am already into the pace of this film, that it didn't bother me. That was enough for me to understand, oh, there's shit happening with other people, and they're might be cannibals. They don't even describe what they want, with the bodies. But it's enough to be frightening. I don't think we need more details. They're not the story we're focused on. It just helps add a little more texture and depth to the environment, and a little more moving forward, into third films, because they're really just slightly expanding on this universe in a way I love. But that provides a little more room for it to just expand, a little more slower into the next movies. I still was pretty thrilled by it and caught off guard. My main issue is the boat ride itself. Is this alien just chilling back on this boat, driving to the island, and just drinking a Long Island iced tea on his boat trip? How does this alien guy know how to ride a boat directly to this island? It's very humorous. Here's also the issue with my humor: is I missed the fucking scene. I love the idea of this alien on it, but I fucking went to the restroom, and I come back and the alien is tearing apart this town. My mom's like, the alien took a boat. So it's all I know is that the alien drove a boat to this island.
The alien did not drive a boat to the island. The alien was, I believe, hanging onto the front of the boat that Cillian Murphy and Millicent Simmons took to the island.
I thought it was a separate boat. This is what I heard from people too. Okay.
Oh, I thought it was the same boat.
No, I think it was a bigger boat that they were on with by the girl was. There's a bigger.
Oh, maybe. I did not.
He's out there navigating, using his compass. He's like, I remember that the North Star points this way. Thanks for Googling this. I just want to think that.
I'm looking this up now.
All these Quiet Place monsters are going to start a boat school to teach each other, and then they're going
to. No, you're right. The creature boards a yacht that drifts to the island. And
these creatures have high quality taste. You think they're going to take a little rowboat? They need a yacht, my friend.
Although, I mean, it is a little bit. I think this is another moment like the moment with the people at the marina, where it's just if you're into the story and enjoying the narrative that's going on, you're willing to give it a pass for, yes, it's a little goofy that the way that the alien gets the island and causes a second attack is by randomly jumping onto a yacht, which randomly happens to float to an island. No,
it didn't randomly float. He guided it to the island.
He didn't guide it. It floats. It drifts to the island.
Expert boatsman.
I honestly...
I understand that it drifted. I like to imagine.
No, that would be a great moment if we just fucking cracking up some beers.
With a little parrot on his shoulder.
The real question is, if you're the alien, does it drink here or does it drink here? Because its face messes up and moves a lot of different ways. I want to know where
throws a whole can inside its 500 teeth and just chews it with the liquid.
So I think what you're saying is that it is roughly the same as those old recycling cans and bottles machines outside of a supermarket.
Yeah, it's basically a can crusher machine.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a moment you can critique. I think this is, again, the thing that I agree with you. Actually, you said something a second ago that it really stuck me, which is that this movie does something really smart, which is it expands the world, but it does it so slightly and effortlessly that it still works narrative-wise. So many sequels make the mistake of okay, well, the first movie was them on a farm with aliens, so the second movie has to be them and 500 other people. And it's no, you don't want that. You want the fact that they keep it slow, contained, and so small and expanding, but only slightly. They don't do anything crazy is, I think, one of the reasons that the movie just really feels like a continuation of the first one rather than a completely different film.
Yeah, my assumption going in was it was going to become like more national, if not like international, or like a global, tragedy that you can see, which they like hint that it's happening globally, but it doesn't feel a need to expand itself outside the story. The furthest it goes is it adds an island, a little bit of like a safe rescue, and that's like the one idea they had on what can we add. And I think that was perfect because what the movie cares more about is the family and the characters, and I think there's enough expansion in there. Personal growth that matters more than the expansion of the world.
Although the island does bring in one of my favorite moments, which is that the random Jaimin Hansu showing up in this film, which is
that threw me off. It's like he's in this.
I was so surprised because I was totally I saw it and I was like, you just think that's Jaimin Hansu, that's some other black dude, that's not him. Jaimin Hansu has like several Oscar nominations. Like
this is kind of his typical role now, and he's never been like a leading man.
No, but like I'm not saying he's been a leading man. This is just kind of really small in comparison to like his other stuff. I feel like he's in bigger stuff before. I mean, actually, I guess if you think about it, he's got a small role in Captain Marvel. He's got a small role in Serenity. He's got a small role in Aquaman. He's got a small role in Shazam. Yeah,
some depth to it. He has a little bit to do. For the most part, he's there to kind of give exposition on how they made it to the island and how there's a safe place. But they do give him enough of his like concern for his family and being a hero for a little bit, taking the alien away from the town to then going to his own like too quick passing. I don't know if he needed to die. I feel like he's a character that could have carried on forward, and I would have loved to see him.
I don't think they're going to play a lot. I don't think the third movie is going to play a lot with that specific island. If I'm being honest, no, I don't think that's the future.
He could have carried as far as like planning with killing Murphy and Blunt. He could have been part of the team.
Talk of craziness. Do you know who plays the leader of the group of dangerous feral humans at the marina?
I know from other podcasts. Scoop me there.
I did not know this watching it. Did you know that watching it?
Like, no, now I'm watching it. I don't know if I can. Well, he's in like all like dirt and grime and hair.
That's fair. That's fair. It was hard to. It's hard. Definitely hard to recognize. Yeah,
I assume they just like casted someone out of a dumpster, just literally grabbed him out of the dumpster and say, "Hey, you want to be in this movie?" And that's Scoop Maneri.
Oh, Brian Tyree Henry was supposed to play the Jaimin Hansu part.
Could have been good.
He got replaced because of scheduling.
That would be the second time this year that he tries to save a crisis through broadcasting.
That's except this one, he's much less of an idiot. I guess there's not much else to talk about.
For kids, because the movie before was more of John Krasinski and Emily Blunt's movie.
Oh,
and them leading a family, through this, and this is more about filling in the shoes of your parents in a way, or becoming your own person. This often, like other critics have given this kind of a classic take on masculinity. I think it's a little unfair to give the movie. I don't really think it's about that. I think because they also cross genders. Millicent Simmons, has to kind of take care of herself as much as Noah Jupe does. So I don't think it's about toughen up, man up kind of things. It's about toughen up everybody because you're in a fucking apocalypse. But I don't think it's specifically attributed as a male quality.
I don't think so either, because arguably Millicent Simmons is playing the John Krasinski role.
For sure. So it's about how do you, once the parents aren't there for you anymore, how do you fill in and maintain your own survival, which is a universal theme that this movie is playing into, this alien concept that I think is really effective. I think they make it really streamlined through the whole film. It's never really forgotten. Every action the characters take fulfills that kind of personal growth. It seems very focused on those kind of character arcs. I think sometimes is lost in other genre movies of this sort.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing I noticed from rewatching A Quiet Place to this one is, my God, Noah Jupe and Millicent Simmons have aged. They're in that specific time frame.
Noah Jupe especially.
Noah
Jupe
Jupe looks
younger at the beginning.
Noah Jupe legitimately looks like he's grown 2 feet.
Yeah.
It's that they're in that specific age for actors where sequels really suck because they age 6 years in the year it takes to do production.
Who did grow? That baby. That baby didn't grow at all. It needs to be checked for its developmental.
I believe I believe that the beginning of this film is supposed to be very shortly after the end of the first one. Like, I think there's not much time between the two.
You mean not the like opening scene? Because opening scene
no.
Yes, but where the action takes place in like present time. Yes. I think it's pretty soon after.
Yeah, I believe it is very, 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 very closely after. Because there's like water in the basement. That's like legitimately right after the end of the first film. I think it's
because it's kind of like, what's their next steps now that we don't have John Krasinski to lead us the way? How can the kids
and their house is relatively destroyed, so it's obviously like that's another big part of it.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of what they should do for a third film? Do you want more of this family? Do you want other characters in this universe? Do you have thoughts?
I'm not a TV or a movie writer for any reason because my creative mind can be very limited. I think I want to, once again, not expand too much. I don't want to become like a national crisis of them expand, but maybe it kind of sets them off almost as being like the avenging angels at this point. Like they can go off and teach people the tricks to the trade of how to kill these aliens. So maybe them taking a more offensive step rather than defensive, I think could be an interesting way. Like instead of how do we keep surviving, but how do we like make an actual difference in the situation?
Fair.
Which I think this is what that's setting up for, is like how do we spread the message? That's why they looked for the radio broadcasting. It was still starting the steps of how do we actually take action now.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to... I don't necessarily have a lot of interest in them being like, look, here's another family dealing with the same problems. That feels like that would get kind of old relatively fast. I would be kind of interested to see where the progression of this, whether the entire family continues this progress, maybe Emily Blunt and the baby stay somewhere to be safe, and maybe Millicent Simmons keeps going more, maybe Jupe does. I would just be interested to see kind of like the progression. Like they've done small steps of, trying to keep themselves safe, traveling to somebody else's, traveling again, and maybe now they have like a chance. They have a couple of ideas how to fight these creatures. Maybe they have something they can go after them. That would be interesting to see, like a little bit. I agree. The offensive aspect of it would be interesting because they basically spent 2 films basically like trying not to run into them because they didn't think they had much shot.
Yeah, my fear is that like sometimes with sequels, especially as they get further away, they feel the need to have some kind of like human villain. So I mean, someone that's like exploiting the situation, which I don't really think is where the drama needs to come from. Which is like they touch upon that with the community of outsider heathens, but just to the right level. They're not the main antagonists. I want to keep the antagonists being the setting and aliens rather than trying to force it into it. Yeah,
I would be interested though, like to see more. I think it's not a bad idea to have once or twice a movie, like, and touching lightly on. Oh, look, there are people who are not trying to protect their families and themselves, but are like, bad situations do weird stuff. Some people rise to the situation and become better versions of themselves, and some people, really degrade into like the worst instincts of humanity.
Because I feel like this can be a ground for an idea of like a cult-like situation of people who like either like spiritually praise these beings or do something kind of odd spiritually within the situation.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Any final thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2?
Nope. I really love it. It's, great action, thrill ride for what it is. And they still have some great set pieces. They use, the like kind of vault, whatever it is, very smartly. That's kind of the grain silo step in for this one. There's nothing that quite gets to the unease that the grain silo gave to me, which is one of the most frightening scenes for me. I don't know why, but it's like because it's like quicksand, which is terrifying you as a child, and this is just pretty quicksand back to me. It was very terrifying, but they still, he still has a great craft for making these, set pieces that come one after another to kind of keep the ride accelerating all the way through.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of really good scares. It's a good continuation of the first movie. I agree wholeheartedly with you that if you like this one and don't like the last one, or like the last one and don't like this one, I have some serious questions about the way you watch movies, because they're literally basically they're so closely related that I feel like you'd have to like one to like the other. I want to see more from Krasinski. I want to see him do more stuff. It's kind of cool that he's not doing the third one, that it's Jeff Nichols. I'll be interested to see what he does on his own, because he clearly has he clearly has an eye for this stuff. He clearly has like a good mind for directing. He can set stuff up really well. Good scares. He does emotional stuff well. Like you're connected to this family after 2 movies. You care about them. You understand them as people. Yeah, he's showing a lot of talent. It was a good time. It's fun to go back to the theaters, even if I had to sit in the front row and crane my neck all the way back. Good time.
I sit in the front row by choice sometimes.
That's psycho. I always sit I like to sit like row J or row K or something. Far
usually C and slightly off center to the left.
I'm center row. I'm like going to the theater, go up, go like 3-4 rows up, go center. That's my choice. With that being said, thank you everyone for enjoying our review. We will have more reviews coming this week. We will have more reviews next week. We will have regular scheduled podcasts coming. Enjoy our content. If you have thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2, drop them in the comments below. Tell us if you agree with us, disagree with us, what you thought of the film. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, go see this movie. It's definitely worthwhile to see in the theaters. It's a really good experience. With that being said, peace out, folks. Have a good night, rest of your night.